You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about sports in the state of Michigan?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, the show that provides research and statistics about all the Detroit and Michigan sports teams, whether fans like it or not, and detects, exposes, and reveals actual and hidden facts and truth that the mainstream media doesn't want you to know. No junk, no entertainment, no homerism, no slappiness, no coddling, no pop culture, no conspiracy theories, no opinions, no shilling, and no fluff. Head over to our website, themichigansportstruthpodcast.com. Follow us on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at Michigan_Truth, and like the show's two Facebook pages, one of them at Michigan Sports Truth, and the other created by the Stables Network. Go to the Stables Network's website, primetimewiththestablesnetwork.com, like the Stables Network on Facebook, and follow it on Twitter and Periscope at Stables Network, and on Instagram at the Stables Network. The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast does not represent or defame any of the teams it covers, nor does it represent or compete against any mainstream media in the state of Michigan. It is also not for entertainment or debating purposes. It only detects, exposes, and reveals honest, actual, and hidden truth, facts, and statistics about them. And it is for every sports fan's own good because the truth is out there.
You can call it 1-415-340-4848. That's 1-415-340-4848, extension 822 to join in. Also, another option, you can join in the Zoom meeting ID 376-916-986. That's 376-916-986. I'm Taylor Phillips, along with Frank Vasner. Ed Smith will be in here sometime shortly. Follow me on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at DT2Phillips. Follow Ed Smith on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at EdSmith313. And follow Frank Vasner on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at Frank_Vasner. Frank, great to have you back. Glad you're feeling better. How have things been doing for you?
Well, Taylor, it's great to be back on with you guys, and things have been going pretty well since I found out a little less than a week ago that my shoulder had healed up completely, and I've kind of getting back in the swing of things, doing some slight work around my property. Just nothing too heavy though. I'm just trying to get myself rehabbed because I can't really do much in terms of physical therapy, so I'm kind of on my own there. But I'm just glad that it's pretty much all over with, and I don't have to wear that sling anymore, and I can be back on with you guys.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Wonderful. It's great to hear you again, Frank. It's great to see you again. I just happened to catch the tail end of that, and trust me, from personal experience, I know full too well the familiarity of not only dealing with an injury, but still trying to work around and work with that injury, and in many cases wearing a sling as well. So that I sympathize with greatly, and trust me, it can be irritating at times, but it's in the long run, it's well worth it. So I'm glad you're doing better now, and continue to improve your recovery.
Yeah, thank you, Ed.
And look, I've been hospitalized once, twice, three times. One of them in my inner right thigh had cellulitis at the end of 2016. Not sure why, but it just came, and it lasted for like 5 days until I was just discharged, and then I started taking probiotics actually to get my leg to feel better. It took time, and it healed. So all that being said, let's get back to work. Ed, I think you're muted. There you go. Okay, so let's get to work. Here's what we know at the moment. In terms of MLB, the MLB has rejected an MLB amateur draft proposal. Ed, you're still muted there. Not sure why, but oh yeah, okay, gotcha. Muting yourself so you speak. That's good. But yep, gotcha. MLB and MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred's office are reportedly at odds over the amateur draft format. Former MLB players in South Korea, South Korea's top baseball league detailed their experience preparing to play ball on May 5th, which is actually yesterday. That was Cinco de Mayo. Unfortunately, we had pizza. That's still my favorite food. But anyway, the league was trying to squeeze in 100 games with momentum building from both owners and players. Los Angeles Angels manager Joe Madden says MLB has responsibility to use technology to connect with the public because he wants better fan engagement. MLB sees teams playing as many games as possible at home ballparks, while alternative options become less likely. And finally, the league is expected to submit a 2020 season restart play to the Players Union by the middle of May. Now, we just got word that MLB is getting close to a proposal to restart that season. Ed, we'll start with you. That includes our beloved Detroit Tigers. Even though they still won't do good enough this year, which is still a little bit better than the last 2 years. It's almost time to play.
Yes, and I think it has to do with the varying degrees of not only the states that are choosing to reopen, but how they're doing it, the phases, the stages that they're doing it in. Just now, of course, for example, a big noteworthy example in my view, the state of California now moving on to stage 2 or phase 2 of their plan to slowly but surely reopen the state. Now, as far as I know, Governor Whitmer, she still has her national stay-at-home orders still extended to at least the 15th, if not the 28th, in some regards, in some extents. So that, again, is going to depend on whether or not, the essential businesses and also which categories she clarifies should be deemed worthy enough to be essential businesses compared to what Governor Ron DeSantis did in Florida concerning sports, which allowed sports like items and sports events such as WWE and UFC just now start holding events there. We'll get to that in a little bit, but moving back on, I digress, moving back on to baseball, when you start seeing states like California slowly but surely coming back into play, knowing that states like Georgia and Florida and Texas have their own phases of reopening going on, it does make, it's not a surprise to see that, wheels are churning in terms of trying to get some sort of deal involved. And okay, now we're going to have, because you can't really call it a restart because the season never really began. We were just getting ready to finish up spring training when the whole pandemic outbreak stuff hit the fan. And, it's been that way ever since. So this would be essentially the official start of the 2020 season. Now, in terms of how you're going to jam all those games together, I'm really hoping that for all intents and purposes, have as condensed a schedule as possible. I've been hearing, and we've discussed also the likelihood of increasing double headers. Again, that all varies on teams that are willing to travel, will be able to travel. Not to mention regards of proper testing involved for each and every team that decides to travel in and out of states, and just making sure each and every proper safety procedures are being followed, just like it is going to be seen out detailed briefly with the UFC in a moment. But it is a progress. I did expect, listen, we all knew sports weren't going to be gone forever. It was just a gradual process and anticipation of when, not if. Which, who would be the first domino to fall. You kind of saw that last month, so to speak, with WrestleMania being held. Now you're going to see this eventual UFC event being held. Now it's just, just slowly getting the ball rolling in terms of restarting sports and an essential, and in fact, restarting the nation in a sense. So it is good on the one hand to have that escape from the distraction being, even if it's in some form of modification, sure, but at least it's there. On the other hand, you want this to be sure that it is not only responsible, but as safe and well thought out as humanly possible, because it's good. You want to reopen and restart everything, but you do know that it's still leaving open the door for potential new explosion of new new cases, new confirmed cases, and yes, even more deaths. And yes, people are still dying. So that's something to always keep in mind whenever you want to have talks of restarting or reopening anything. So that's my thoughts in that regard.
Yeah, and at least in Michigan, the curve is starting to flatten already. 44 new deaths yesterday, and then 76 today. That's still pretty low. It was an increase from yesterday to today, but still, that's pretty low. New cases and new deaths in Michigan, but the curve is starting to flatten in Michigan. We have Michael Winslow on the line. Yeah, we're talking about how the correct coronavirus has affected sports thus far, but Michael Winslow, welcome to the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on the Staples Network. You got anything to add? Keep it clean. Oh. Nope. Okay. So anyway, Frank, what's your take on MLB?
Well, I've actually got an article from Jeff Passan of ESPN.com up right now, and after going through it, one thing that did catch my eye was the look of the game and season will be determined in any agreement between the league and the players union, and multiple executives have suggested that as many as 50 players will be available for teams to use, and that the active roster is up to 30 for each game, and length of season should start in July would be from 80 to 100 games. Now, that's one thing that I was kind of wondering how it was going to look, with roster size and how long the season would be, especially since, we're opening things back up, but we also have to do it safely and responsibly. Would I love for baseball to be back and everybody be able to go to the ballpark? Yeah, I would, but this is going to take time to do that. So, and I'd like for them to have a full season as well, but that's not realistic at this point. And I'll gladly take an 80 to 100 game season over no season at all. So hopefully this does keep rolling forward like it has been, and we can make some progress. And of course, we'll see how things end up going, and as a result, and I can share that Passan article with you guys if you want it.
Yes, please do. So,
Right.
Michael Winslow has re-entered the Zoom app.
Hi, sorry, I accidentally pressed leave meeting instead of consent.
Yeah. So
No problem.
That's okay. Yeah. Anything to add? Keep it clean, please.
Sure. What was the question again? I'm sorry.
No, we weren't asking any questions. We were talking about MLB having a start proposal to their season. They're close to it, but they have to make everything official. We got tons of other stuff to get to, but if you want to add anything, go right ahead. No?
No, I think I'm fine. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But thanks for chiming in though, but absolutely. Thanks very much. Let's if you want to keep on listening, go ahead. The NBA could start the 2020 to 2021 season in December and end in July or August 2021. So this season could finish in plenty of time. Then we got the league reportedly. Nate Navarro, welcome. The NBA reportedly issuing a memo telling the teams not to test asymptomatic players or staff. Then ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski reported that the NBA is in talks to delay the 2020 to 2021 season until December. The league announces the 2020 NBA draft lottery and combine will be delayed indefinitely. Well, at least do it virtually whenever you do it, please. Thank you, Adam Silver. The league's GMs, NBA team GMs, general managers are concerned about coaches who might be at high risk if they are exposed to the coronavirus if play resumes. Disney World and Vegas reportedly are at the top list for potential quarantine scenarios, for the potential quarantine scenario for the season to resume. And then Shams Charania reported that the NBA will reopen the practice facilities in states with eased stay-at-home guidelines May 8th. that is in 2 days. That's this Friday. No more than 4 players would be, here's guideline number 1. No more than 4 players would be permitted at a facility at any single time. No head or assistant coaches are allowed to participate. Number 2, group activity remains prohibited, including practices or scrimmages. Players remain prohibited from using non-team facilities such as public health clubs, fitness centers, or gyms. Players in team facilities must wear face masks at all times except during physical activity, and team staffers remain at least 12 feet away from them. And finally, the league is supporting the Mayo Clinic research by assisting a study to detect coronavirus antibodies in blood. So the NBA is working something out. Ed, we'll start with you again. Well, then I'll turn it over to Frank on his take. So Ed, the NBA is trying to work something out. They could be on the verge of continuing their season as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it is always you always felt it was within the realm of possibility as soon as sports were deemed an essential business, not just in terms of what it was going to do in the state of Florida, but also potentially influencing what other states could do with their own versions of things. For example, I think I wasn't sure if this was mentioned or not, but with the likelihood of Las Vegas reopening themselves. There was an article that I'm looking at right now that examines the potential proposal that the MGM Resorts had, with the NBA to get to work something out in terms of resuming the season and having the playoffs on the Vegas Strip. And you think about all of the properties and the areas and the buildings and arenas that is on that strip alone. MGM Grand Garden, Mandalay Bay, I think Caesar's Palace is there. Of course, T-Mobile Arena. Just those venues alone could do so much in terms of hosting games, hosting teams, and of course, when you have adjacent casinos to most, if not all, of those venues, that alone is much more better for convenience sake in terms of housing the players and also keeping players isolated at the same time. In regards to how they're going to get fans into this, I still don't know. That to me is probably the trickiest of all tricky hurdles, because you still want to encourage the fan involvement, but you can't really endanger their safety at this time and the health at this time as of right now. But we'll see how it goes. But I could see, I think to me it's not going to be so weird seeing this in an empty arena being played in front of no fans, because I was just watching, kind of a brief funny story, but it makes sense to what the ultimate point here. I was just watching the latest episodes of the Last Dance documentary about Michael Jordan, Chicago Bulls, and there was an episode, part of the episode, when they were discussing the Dream Team. They were in Barcelona, and I think there was the famous Monte Carlo scrimmage where you had 2 sets of teams. There was a team captained by Magic Johnson, the other, of course, captained by Michael Jordan. They were going at each other and in full-blown practice scrimmage, whatever you want to call it. It may not have been official, but it felt official in terms of the brief clippings of video that we've seen. And, in terms of what we were to see and hear, you can hear the trash talk. You can hear and see, and in some cases, feel the intensity of what was going on. They were going at it like they were treating this pickup game like it was Game 7 of the NBA Finals. And I think that type of intensity could be quite a refreshing view into seeing how these players go at it, how they do their craft. It's always the good spectacle and song and dance light show that we see with the crowd, with the technicians, pyrotechnics, and all the other sorts and other good things. But seeing the game being played at its raw core could be very intriguing to watch. That's why I think, whatever glimmer of sports that we've have been able to get ever since the news of this pandemic really started to really take shift, whether it will be the UFC event in Brazil, of course, WrestleMania 36, the upcoming UFC now officially revived UFC 249, amongst other events. I think it will be not only, yes, it is a way to give us an escape, but also a brand new way for us to get discover a new side of how we can connect, how we, the fans, we, the people, can connect through sports. Seeing it at its most almost raw nature and stage and core, I think it could be quite fascinating to watch. And quite frankly, seeing it being done with basketball has me excited to see what's going to happen when play eventually resumes.
Frank.
Couldn't agree more with Ed on that. I think it is going to be very refreshing to see basketball returning. And, of course, one thing I would like to add to it is if it's going on in the summer, or whether it be they wrap up a regular season or if they jump right in the playoffs, I think a lot more people are going to be tuned into it that come playoff time, because I think all the playoff games are going to be nationally broadcast. And think about that. On a Tuesday night in July, you've got, say, Lakers and Nuggets on a Tuesday night in July in a playoff round. That's something I tune in and watch. And of course, I think I also want to throw in this. There was a tweet from Adrian Wojnarowski that came out recently, said teams opening their facilities for the workouts, they will be able to designate 6 assistant coaches or player development personnel to provide supervision of workouts. Yeah, I just want to throw that in there. But also, Woj added to that, head coaches are not going to be allowed to participate or observe the player workouts. So,
Of course not.
yeah, I just wanted to make sure that was thrown out there. So, again, it does seem like that Adam Silver and the rest of the NBA, they're really going through and doing their homework on this and going about it in a very smart and responsible way. So
just make sure they wear face masks.
Oh, yes. Obviously, they're going to have to do that.
Every single one of them.
Yes, as well. I mean, I'm really not sure if they'd be able to do that while playing the game and doing all that physical activity, because that might actually do more harm than good. But I'm sure they'll find a way to make sure that they can take care of all that stuff ahead of time and make sure that all players are healthy and taking care of themselves and doing what they need to do to limit their exposure. So, again, I have to give a tip of the cap to Silver and the rest of the NBA for really doing their homework here and making sure that they can get it going so we can see some basketball.
Yep, absolutely. Not to mention hockey as well.
Yes, that too. It seems like the NHL's really been – I mean, I've been reading reports that the NHL has been trying to get cities secured to play games in, or at least get things going again. I know it's a bit of a slow process, but it should be here in due enough time.
Yep, absolutely. Because we've heard reports that Commissioner Gary Bettman considers a December start to next season, except nothing is set in stone. Also, the NHL is looking at June 5th for the start of the NHL entry draft. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says all NHL players entering Canada will be subject to mandatory quarantine if season resumes, which is fair and safe. Pittsburgh Penguins star forward Sidney Crosby donates donates 100,000 meals to prepare in the city of Pittsburgh. Let's see here. And former NHL enforcer George Laraque discharged from the hospital recovering from COVID-19. Let's see here. So those are the headlines in the NHL.
And Taylor, one thing I did want to throw out, kind of in relation to the NHL draft. I believe there has been discussion about the draft lottery being changed up too, where you won't see a team that's only a few points out of the playoffs jump into the top 3. It sounds like that the Detroit Red Wings, who currently have the worst record, would stand to at least be assured of getting second pick at worst, and hopefully end up getting the number 1 pick. That's just something I have seen floated out there. Nothing isn't shown yet. So
yeah, but I've seen
if the
that.
NHL goes forward.
Definitely seen that as well, Frank. And to me, that's just obviously a good thing because if anything, that's going to help, in some instance, accelerate the rebuild that Eisman's trying to get done. Um, if we got time for Red Wings news, we'll mention that another important aspect of the of the rebuild that we taking steps of getting done soon. So we'll be able to discuss that momentarily. But yeah, I do like the fact that the Red Wings are almost assuredly going to get a top two, if not the number one overall pick.
Yeah. I'm still thinking the Red Wings are going to get Alexis Lafreniere. Still got to keep our hopes up. So anyhow, thanks to all of our Zoom. Apologies for this. Thanks to all that have listened live on Zoom. At least we got a couple listeners. One of them which kind of acted inappropriately, but anyway, we apologize for that kind of noise. Anyway, the NFL will release a full 17-week schedule next week by Saturday, May 9th. This week, actually, by this Saturday, May 9th, and is planned to start on time, according to league spokesman Brian McCarthy. The 2020 regular season schedule will be released this Thursday night at 8 p.m. on 8 p.m. Eastern. That is tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern, kind of like Thursday at 8, the time of the NFL draft every single year, just like including this year, which went virtual. It has canceled 5 international games for the 2020 season. The NFL has prepared a ticket refund policy by circulating a plan in an event where games could be either canceled or played without fans. So what we're looking at, to boil it down, the NFL is right now trying to release a full 17-week schedule ahead of time, but only time will tell if it'll be either canceled or played without fans or played with fans. But right now, the safest bet would be for games to be played without fans. Ed, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, full agrees with that. It doesn't surprise me that we are seeing the NFL, because you figure with the draft happening, it was just one step of beginning their own process as well of reopening their own doors, reopening business themselves. So knowing that we're going to see, in all likelihood, a condensed baseball season and a condensed basketball season, both taking place over the summer, you would expect them by that point for the NFL to follow suit. And since it's going to be after the summer anyway, it will give them their rightful, likely, and correct starting point. So they don't have to worry about making any schedule adjustments or shifts or any of that sort of thing. So it doesn't surprise me in that regard. Now, obviously, at this point, the only thing that you're interested in seeing, what the suspense is, what are going to be the matchups, what are going to be, the anticipated schedulings, whether between division rivals or this quarterback versus that quarterback, Tom Brady versus facing the Patriots again, this time with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, amongst other potential storylines you can create with these games and the schedule. So that only is the one aspect that can't wait to see until tomorrow night. But it will be finally revealed at least.
Yep, absolutely. Frank, follow up.
Well, I also have heard a report that it sounds like the first part of NFL seasons could be cross-conference games, so you could have because I believe it's the NFC North will play the AFC South this year, so that means that the Detroit Lions will probably end up facing the Jaguars, Texans, Titans, and Colts in some particular order, or in the first 4 weeks, and then they'll get into NFC play. I don't know if they'll go to whichever NFC division they'll end up facing, or if they'll just go divisional play first and kind of go from there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens come tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. And also, if they end up limiting fans, some say they'll probably limit it to stadium to maybe 25% capacity, or they may just say nobody comes in at all. But again, that's all going to depend on how we are when the season gets closer.
Yep. So we'll keep an eye on all the activity that's going on in the NFL in terms of the coronavirus, especially as well as the NHL, the NBA, and Major League Baseball. Also, well, let's get the UFC stuff out of the way before we get to MLS and college football stuff in terms of the coronavirus. Ed, we've got updates on UFC 251 and UFC 249. First off, UFC 251, the Perth event, due to government restrictions, was postponed. It was originally supposed to start supposed to start on June 5th. That's one thing. That's one report. The other, the UFC has roughly 1,200 case COVID-19 tests on hand to ensure fighters and staff are safe at UFC 249 this weekend. So we're getting word that UFC 249 will go on this weekend. So Ed, chime in.
Yes, it will. UFC 249 officially now, and if you want to use the words of Khabib Nurmagomedov, it now has location, and the location will be the VyStar Veterans Memorial Arena, located near it or in Jacksonville. So that is now a venue, which means the UFC can now go on with business. And so the revived UFC 249 card, which will take place this Saturday night, is going to feature in the main event Tony Ferguson versus Justin Gaethje for the interim lightweight championship. And thus, with that, the winner of that fight likely going on to unify with champion Khabib Nurmagomedov, likely sometime in the fall. However, the co-main event is a fight that I'm very much intrigued at seeing. It is bantamweight champion, former flyweight champion Henry Cejudo, defending his bantamweight belt against former bantamweight champion and an all-time legend of the sport, Dominick Cruz, who is now, this was a matchup that came about almost inconspicuously of its own. The original matchup was for Cejudo to face Jose Aldo, who was, of course, longtime featherweight champion, consensus greatest featherweight of all time, dropped down to bantamweight, lost a controversial decision. Fans felt he probably thought he won. Dana White thought he'd won, so he rewarded him with a title shot against Cejudo. Cejudo was picking his shots, calling out names, wanted Aldo anyway, got him. Now with Aldo being unable to travel out of Brazil, I don't know if it's because of lockdown or whatever, but likely due to COVID-related issues, travel is restricted, so Cejudo needs a new opponent. In steps in another man he's been calling out as well, and this time it's Dominick Cruz. Cruz is a former two-time bantamweight champion. He, along with Uriah Faber and TJ Dillashaw, helped evolve the sport in many ways, particularly for smaller weight classes, especially at bantamweight, where you didn't have to be the biggest dude or the guy with the biggest body to draw the attention and steal the show. So seeing in terms of the battle of generations, old versus new, and seeing if the once longtime former champion Cruz, who's had his own setbacks, injuries, and long-term inactivity, can he climb that mountain one more time against a seemingly new age future face of the future dominant champion in Cejudo, who is really came off of one of the most impressive years you have ever seen. He dethroned in a 365-day span. He dethroned longtime champion and consideration for not just pound for pound, but all-time greatest Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. Then he stops then bantamweight champion TJ Dillashaw in less than a minute. Of course, it turns out Dillashaw was using PEDs, but still makes him even more impressive what Cejudo did. Then Cejudo goes up to weight, and goes up to 135, faces Marlon Moraes, and in battles through adversity early on, gets the stoppage, becomes a two-division champ himself. So seeing what Cejudo has done, and of course, the fact that he goes on and on of he has an Olympic gold medal and he has this character, this persona, this triple C persona, which whether you like it or you don't like it, it is garnering attention. It's getting him the exposure, so to speak, to the point where now he's picking his shots. He's calling out who he wants to fight, and he's getting who he wants to fight. Rankings be damned. So with Dominic Cruz now stepping into the fray again, it creates such an intriguing storyline that to me, I'm looking forward to that more so than the main event. So obviously there's other fights on the card. There's Anthony Pettis against Cowboy Cerrone. There's Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Francis Ngannou. There's Michelle Waterson versus Carla Esparza. This is a packed card. And really, this is the best that the UFC can and will muster in terms of marking their first big-time return to pay-per-view since the pandemic outbreak hit. So props to Dana White for trying to pull this off as much as he possibly could. Obviously, you still want this to be going on with as much safety and consideration for the health of others as possible. So social distancing will be practiced at this event. You're going to see broadcasters at different tables. You're going to see judges at different tables, obviously. Crew people will be wearing masks. It's going to be a bit surreal, but what hasn't been surreal as of late, So if anything, it'll be quite up the norm. But yeah, UFC 249 is a go. All at this point now is we got to see the guys make their weight, guys and girls make their weight, get through this fight week with hopefully, knock on wood, no more bad luck or any injuries popping up last minute, and enjoy a good night of fights. And as for WWE, they are going on with their Money in the Bank pay-per-view this Sunday. They are continuing on the cinematic theme of what was widely regarded as their two most talked about matches from, two of the top three from WrestleMania, if you want to consider Edge versus Randy Orton as one. That was, of course, the Boneyard match with AJ Styles, The Undertaker, and the Firefly Funhouse match with John Cena and Bray Wyatt. Expanding upon that, they're now going to be using WWE headquarters in Stamford to film basically the climactic and the eponymous match of the namesake of the pay-per-view, the Money in the Bank ladder match, where apparently both the men's and the women's matches will be going on at the exact same time. I don't know how they're going to film it, but the way they got it set up, it is intriguing and it's going to be crazy to watch. I cannot wait. And in terms of the boxing world, obviously they're still trying to slowly restart things as well. But in terms of likely the impending inevitability of more of the sports rotation, most of the sports world being back in rotation by the fall, then you can expect boxing to re-enlist amongst the ranks as well. Like, meaning we're going to be seeing fights such as the third fight between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, and also another trilogy bout as well. This one between Gennady Trilogy Golovkin and Canelo Alvarez. So yeah, that is the report from the combat sports world, and I'll be sure to bring you more as each week progresses.
All right. So we got almost 15 minutes left. We're at 10:38 p.m. and change. So why don't I get those other two notes out of the way? And the MLS has announced that players will be able to practice alone at outdoor facilities starting today, May 6th. And in college football, SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey says that the NCAA isn't required to restart college football activities ahead of the 2020 slate, which is safe, which is actually safely speaking. One coronavirus headline involving the Michigan Wolverines football team, I would like to pass along to you guys. The players were, at least some of the players were working out on Ohio State's field. That's one report that I passed along to you guys off the air in our Messenger private group chat. So Ohio State fans not too pleased with it, but that's just the beauty of the rivalry. So you combine the coronavirus situation and the game rivalry, Michigan and Ohio State. Michigan was probably trying to send a message. Probably was just an interesting idea in terms of quarantine workouts on the gridiron, Ed? We'll start with you again.
Well, I don't know how in the hell you can send a message when you haven't done jack squat in the past 2 decades. Okay, you've won what? 2 games now in 20 years? You've gotten your asses kicked how many times now? Both at home and on the road? Stop it.
Oh, man, plenty of times.
Win a damn game first, then come talk to me.
Yeah. Frank, follow up.
I'm not really sure how I can follow up what Ed did, other than just saying, let the congregation say amen. You go down there and start trying to send a message. Well, all you're doing is just kicking the hornet's nest and asking Ohio State to basically open up another can of whoop ass on you come November.
At least, I know, right? I mean, at least by the time when Devin Bush did his best impersonation of the Rick James F Yo couch on the MSU logo at midfield, at least they had won a game at that point in Harbaugh's tenure. Yeah, there was trouble with the snap. Yeah, there was the rain out game. But you still had 2016 when you dominated them out on their place. So that made sense for that to happen. Of course, Bush was fired up over the Bush League stuff from D'Antonio. But I digress. At least that made sense. This makes 0 sense.
Exactly. You want to send a message? Go shut up and win the game first.
Yeah, more importantly, more importantly, stay in your own lane. Practice on your own field. Even though in Detroit there are a lot of coronavirus cases and deaths going on through as of right now, you still got to stay in your own lane, man.
Exactly.
So, how much time? We got less than 14 minutes left. Got some other news to pass along in terms of non-coronavirus news. Quarterback Shea Patterson signed with the Kansas City Chiefs, so the Wolverines won't have him on their field. So, there's Ed.
Well, in terms of seeing Shea Patterson being signed with the Chiefs, I actually don't mind it because I think he fits their style. I think he could be seen as a break in case of emergency type of break in case of glass type of emergency, just in case Mahomes gets hurt again or something to that effect, like we saw last season. So I could see that being a possibility. I could also see Patterson being used in potential, gadget plays, gadget scenarios. And, if all else fails, there's always the practice squad. So I think the system is in place to where Patterson doesn't have to be worried about being shoved into that, that pro style that obviously did not do him wonders, did not do him any well when he was at Michigan. He was much more better when he was operating out the spread style. And I think going to Kansas City is the right system, the right background for him to feel most comfortable as he begins his professional career.
Yep. So the Wolverines will have to search for another quarterback. The Lions, first of all, my Chippewas, Dallas Cowboys released former Chippewas quarterback Cooper Rush. He was probably a backup behind Cooper or Dak Prescott. Not much playing time there. So that's the only excuse I've got. And speedy cornerback Eric Reese from Macomb, Michigan commits to CMU to play with the Chips. Lions decline linebacker Jared Davis's 5th-year option. Doesn't mean he's out of Detroit yet. Michael Rothstein of ESPN and Ian Rappaport of NFL.com reported that Davis had struggled in coverage, giving up a 78.4% completion rate and a 116.6 passer rating allowed last season, pointed out by Pro Football Reference.
Yeah, I would put him on 1-year notice too if he put up stats like that. Trevor's a nice kid. He makes good plays from time to time, but he has been such a liability in pass coverage. Like, man, you don't know where to put him. It's like a glaring weakness every single time. So yeah, this is your 1 year's notice, man. So if you do well, then hopefully we can find some type of negotiable way to bring you back, or another team will be attracted to you, and thus you can get more money. Other than that, best wishes, best luck, future endeavors.
Yep, that's true. Frank,
Yeah, I gotta agree with that on that, because I have to say good on the Lions part for sending him a message saying this is the year where you better either put up or shut up, and if you don't put up, there's a door. Don't let it hit you on the way out, because, as you mentioned, he struggled in pass coverage, and if he doesn't pick it up there, then he's probably going to end up playing elsewhere here, and who knows what the Lions will do to replace him, or who knows if this current regime will be around, but that's another topic for another time.
Yep, and it's developing too. Also, Also, in terms of the Red Wings, there was a rumor that Frank, you pointed out from Hockey Feed, Jeff Blashill's likely done as head coach, and that's not surprising at all.
No,
I get to our stories here.
Yeah, I don't
think
that's a surprise at all, because he was in the final year of his contract anyway, and with Steve Yzerman pretty much almost through with year one, I think he's probably saying, you know what, I gotta get somebody else in here, because the team's not getting any better on the ice. I know there's an obvious lack of talent, but he's not getting the most out of them.
No,
so
and they're not responding to him. Like,
yeah,
when you see effort or lack thereof, that lets you know that a coach has lost touch with his team. He's lost a connection. And when you lose that connection, it's very seldom that you see it being brought back or make a return. So once that happens, it's almost inevitable at this point. So, that now with the whole with the fact, it's interesting that Frank, that his contract is up. So they can say, hey, we're letting it go, but we're technically not firing you.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've heard in various reports the two names to possibly keep an eye on for replacements are Gerard Gallant and Lane Lambert, both of whom Steve Yzerman has either roomed with or played with at some point in his career.
Mm-hmm.
Gallant was a former coach of the Vegas Golden Knights, and Lambert is currently an assistant with the New York Islanders. So that's just something that bears watching.
Yep. So we got almost down to 7 or 5 minutes left. Why don't I combine those two next articles? Let's together as best I can. We'll go rapid fire, add some rapid fire speed to go with that. Last Wednesday, April 30th, after the last episode, according to ESPN, headline 7 women file lawsuit against the NCAA. The organization failed to protect them from alleged sexual assaults by male college athletes, despite having an obligation to do so. Michigan State is one of those teams, Nebraska the other. The lawsuit criticizes the NCAA for failing to disclose the special risks related to sexual violence for female students and athletes, for not taking action against athletes reported to have committed acts of sexual violence, and for not supervising employees responsible for addressing sexual violence. It also accuses the NCAA of a failure to monitor, a technical term used in NCAA enforcement of member schools, Title IX investigations and response processes at the respective universities. So we'll talk about that. Also, a class. We'll combine that with our Story Vault segment, the TMSTP Story Vault segment. Tom Izzo irreparably damages reputation, from Jeff Moss of the Detroit Sports Rag on January 20th, 2018. This was about Tom Izzo supporting Lou Anna Keith-Simon when that Nassar stuff broke out. Guys, I'm sure you've read it. Tom Izzo enabled President Lou Anna Keith-Simon, Simon's lack of accountability for this Nassar stuff, for the gymnastic stuff, the sexual assaults in men's basketball, including Tom Izzo, and in football as well. So you combine those two together, and what have you got? A whole lot of turmoil. So Ed, we'll start with you. We only got like about 5 and change minutes.
Yeah, it just shows that obviously it's still a rebuild in and of itself in Michigan State, not just Michigan State, obviously, but other schools in general in terms of repairing and eroding this culture, the culture that has been so abusive and so predatory against women. It needs to change. And with Michigan State, with the scandals and the stories that have been printed out, or just over the past few years alone, you would think, man, can they just get a friggin' break for once? Obviously, you know, the Izzo story is an archive, but then now with this new case, not new case, but this new story being discussed and popping up, it's just, man, you know, we knew it was going to take some time to completely change the culture there, but, you know, are you still finding any skeletons coming out here? So what more else is going to be unearthed there? To me, is the question that remains for MSU.
Yeah, kind of like in that Doom video game series where you try to look for more skeletons, bad guys to roast while trying to stop the invasion of Earth. I have the Doom 2 mobile app on my smartphone, and that's what kind of reminds me of that. It's like that's the metaphor that just popped into my head. Frank, I'll give you 1 minute on all that stuff, and then we'll go to the closing statements. We got less than 4 minutes. Frank, 1 minute, go.
Well, I will say if the NCAA is failing to monitor situations like this when they use that term in their investigations, then shame on them for not doing the good enough job. And look, my only hope is that stuff like this is corrected in a timely manner. There are places where it has been at the smaller levels, but if it's at the highest of high levels, it's got to be fixed. And truthfully, it makes the organization in general just look like a bunch of hypocrites if they don't fix it.
Lesson learned right there.
If not culpable themselves.
Exactly. So those are the two articles that I'd like to get out of the way, and they're out of our way. We'll bring you try our best to bring you another classic DSR article. If not, we'll look at other classic articles from other websites. But let's go to our closing statement. Ed, I'll give you 45 seconds. Go.
My closing statement is that while, yes, we may be starting the beginning stages of reopening and restarting, please do keep in mind that, you know, others are still being affected by this. The cases, the report of confirmed cases are not going to stop. The deaths are not going to stop. People will still get sick. So always keep that in mind, and always remember that, you know, it could still happen to anyone. It could happen to you. So be safe, be cautious, be precautionary, be reasonable, and just be smart. You know, you can still have fun. You can still have a life, but just be smart about it. Don't be an idiot waving around a gun, being covered up in a flag, crying about your freedom being taken away from you. Just don't. Stop it. Be smart.
By the way, there's been a bill to ban the Confederate flags. By the way, so that's out of the way. Frank, I'll give you 30 seconds. Go.
Well, to echo what Ed said, yes, a lot of things are being opened up and a lot of restrictions are being loosened. But the important thing is, while that is good to know, and while it's good to see people can be back out there, exercise your own personal responsibility. Hey, keep your social distancing, keep washing your hands, keep wearing a mask, but also don't worry about stuff that you can't control. Yeah, there's still going to be cases that pop up daily, and unfortunately, people are going to die. But you know what? Only control what you can do so you don't end up being a statistic. Don't worry about all the stuff that you have no control over.
Yep. So as Governor Gretchen Whitmer says, stay home, stay safe, save lives. That's my closing statement. Not intending to plagiarize or anything. So guys, Frank, glad you're back. Ed, Frank, thanks to the both of you. So we'll be at it again next week. So if there's any local, state, or national business that is interested in sponsoring the Michigan Sports Truth podcast on the Staples Network, please contact the network executive producer, Mark Mancini, by email at mancinisports@yahoo.com, or our operations producer, Breck Smith, at breck@thestablesnetwork.com. For Ed and Frank, I'm Taylor. We'll be back next Wednesday at 10 p.m. Stay tuned for the paradigm shift coming up next on the Stables Network. Thanks very much for downloading and sharing. And remember, the truth is out there. TTFN, ta-ta for now. Bon appetit. Hit them with a hind. We rest our case. Stay safe.